So the topic, Claudia, Christine, I'm not going to even do an introduction to us right now. Um, the topic that we were just having a talk about, and I thought, well, let's record a little bit of it, is looking at one of the world's religions. And I think we can talk about Judaism. I think we can talk about what it means to be a Jew. I think we can talk about these things because it's not done with hate. It's not done with a superiority complex, but there is Jewish superiority. But so, Claudia, you were saying, that there is a human suited being, okay, that is genetically not the same as human.
I mean, it's an educated guess. Like, I don't know for absolutely sure,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I would say I'm about 80% certain that this is the case.
Okay. But we can identify through observations and seeing the actions of people around us, or people that are out there performing genocide on the world stage for us right now, right? That they're psychopaths or
Yeah.
parasitical. They do not contain within them loving human compassion. And
Not
so
it.
and so, unfortunately, or fortunately, or because it had to be this way, or however one wants to see it, we're dealing with the consequences of an infiltration in almost all of our governments. And as you pointed out, it goes through the clot shot. It goes through. There is an ongoing genocide at the moment.
Oh, yes.
For me, it's been, because of where my focus has been drawn, and my love of indigenous people, and my love of the nations, my love of people that are of the earth, my love of, I'm watching that happen on the screen every day. Okay. And
Yeah.
I chose to do that. And so in choosing to do that, it seems an imperative, maybe not for others, is what are we looking at? What is the solution? What truth can we bring forth? Right? Because most people are still wrapped up in the construct of lies. And, I don't want to get all biblical because we don't have a lot of time right now. But if I were to ask you, Claudia, let's play a little game. If I were to ask you, what do you identify? This is so crazy because it's such a woke question. What do you identify as?
A spiritual being.
Right. I mean, that's your first foremost thing. I would
Yes.
say the same thing. I'm a human avatar with a spirit within, and I'm in the process of becoming more spiritual. And that doesn't mean like goody goody stuff. It's like my relationship with spirit has become the most vital thing in my life, and how that comes through me. So we're dealing with a class of well, let's just say, we're dealing with Israel, and we're dealing with Palestine. Like, that's the focal point right now for me, what's happening on the planet. Not that it hasn't happened before, and not that it doesn't go on all the time. um, so in this process, it's like, and because you and I have studied World War II history, what happened with Germany, also the same impulse wanted to destroy Germany. The same impulse wanted to take over every resource on the planet. I mean, that's where it gets to ultimately. We're just cattle. So this impulse that's coming through these people, I mean, it defies the human ability to actually capture what we're dealing with. Because human tends to think
Yeah.
other human is human, right? I mean, we even go so far as putting our qualities on God, or we put our qualities on animals. Human is very self-centered in many ways. So what I was saying to you before I push the record button is like, anything that I have to wait myself, and I have to dig, and I have to look within, and I have to do my own study. And I was looking at, of all the different nations, tribes, Christians, Jews, Muslim, and I can't speak for everybody, but because I've been looking at Judaism pretty deep, all right? I mean, and it's like, and I'm asking my friends now that are Jewish, it's like, they seem to, identify first as being Jewish. And they don't even really know why. They haven't even studied their own holy books, most of them. Some of them are atheists, right? So I'm like, well, what makes you Jewish? Right. And it seems to come forward, if you bring that up, it seems to come forward as their first identity.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And so it was like, why is that? And I can only, get to the fact is, well, and it wasn't always that way, obviously, because the Holocaust didn't really, didn't really get embedded into the matrix until like way after the war, really.
Yeah, late 70s.
Yeah, yeah. So that's not it, but that sort of like cemented it in the modern Jewish mind and the victimhood, like the
Yeah.
perennial victims. And I guess that victimhood, that perennial victimhood goes back through time. And then they go, oh, we got thrown out of here and we got kicked out of there. And it's not that hard to find out why.
No, it does not take rocket science.
Right. But that's as far as it goes. Like we're victims, you know,
Yes.
and
Mind you, those people who identify as
I have to
Jewish,
let my dog out just a second. He's
go
barking.
on.
Go, go, go. Go ahead, Claudia.
Um, that's not only those people who identify as Jewish. I mean, you find that the victimhood issue is something you will find across every race, creed, religion across the modern world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do think because we've lost touch with our true nature. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's very easy to fall into any, and it's been done on purpose. I mean, there is an
Of
agenda
course.
operating,
But
and
how easy has it been? You
well,
know, just take the span of, I don't know, a couple of thousand years and make a plan, whereas every 100 or couple of 100 years, you plan to take some freedom away and introduce one or the other lie.
mm-hmm,
And then after another few generations, you repeat it, and so on and so forth. And this is how we ended up in this situation we are currently in.
mm-hmm,
And nobody I know, locally at least, is willing to actually look for what is true. They are perfectly content to, live with lies, lie themselves, because that's what they've been taught from early childhood. It's okay to lie.
mm-hmm.
And then even if they have doubt,
Oh, not
like
only is it okay
in
to lie, it's an imperative, because if you don't
yes,
go along with it, then you're punished.
yes. And uh, I don't know personally anyone who will listen to that inner voice that suggests, well, why don't you dig a little bit deeper and find out if it's even true?
Yeah, well, that's one of my
If
lines.
they even have that inner voice still,
Well,
which
exactly.
some of them don't, I have no doubt.
Well, either they don't, or it's been so suppressed that it never can even voice itself, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if it's a human soul, there's always going to be an inner light or an inner animating light that we have, right? Because we wouldn't be walking around without that inner
it's
animating
very
light.
heavily dimmed.
So, but it's been so suppressed, and even the idea of maybe, I'm sure this happens actually. Somebody might get a little, they might hear that voice. They might have
Mhm.
a moment of lucidity or deeper compassion or something's not right. Even just the whispers. I mean, how many people can really look out at the world and go, not say in some way, things aren't right.
Mhm.
Things aren't the way that I was brought up to believe they were, even. And so, but what it takes after that is the responsibility to that voice. And what you said about truth, it's like I have a friend and he keeps telling me, oh, he's a big talker. And he's like, you know, you can help me. I know you can teach me things. And I was like, no, I can't. I can't teach you shit. And he's like, look, kind of taken back. And I go, you're not pursuing the truth. If you don't decide to pursue the truth, there's nothing I can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was, I didn't say that, but it's kind of like, well, don't waste my time. Don't, you know, I mean, I'm not going to go that way unless somebody's really seeking. And also sometimes I've noticed with people, it's like, it's when they start to break down. It's when they have an inner conflict. It's when they're feeling something deeply and they don't know what it is. They're open. There's
Yeah.
an opening to speak truth. And
However small.
yeah, so I it's this crazy aspect because I really did choose to fully watch what was happening in Palestine, like all the blood, all the gore, all, I mean, I've seen it all. Okay. And I did it, I think, in my own conscious way because I didn't want to turn away from it because
Mm-hmm.
it's happening in my lifetime. It's not in my history books. It's not old black and white photos.
Yeah.
And, you know, so watching human suffering at that level being perpetrated on a people that have no defenses, I mean, Hamas. But, you know, I mean, and it's interesting because at the same time, I have to watch my reaction to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like I'm not deeply embedded in this overall emotional response because part of that trap is also like rooting for the you know, rooting for the bad guys. Let, you know, if they kill some Israelites or if they make a strike, at the same time they have every right to protect themselves. So it's just like, and I think what it does for me is like, I mean, this is brutal. This is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely brutal. Not that, you know, what happened with the Native Americans or the Native people all over the planet. I don't want to forget it, Claudia. That's me.
No,
And
me neither, and we shouldn't. We should
mhm,
make absolutely certain,
mhm.
that will never be forgotten because once it's forgotten, it'll start again.
Yeah, yeah, it's that thing, and it's like I don't know how this resolves itself. I'm talking the big picture right now. I can't see, but I also know behind this, if we can recapture within ourselves first our baseline humanity, which for me is compassionate love. It's just that. That's baseline. But we've been also mind controlled into thinking humans are evil. Well, yeah, they act evil. They do act evil. They do really bad things, like you said, just on a daily basis, they lie.
Yeah.
And yet it's like the rebirth is a possibility here, something new being birthed, something extraordinary that we can't really yet see. And so it's not despair because all of this is trying to get humans to despair. There's millions of humans right now watching what's going on, if not more. And there's a sense of despair because you're here, I'm there. I don't have anything I can do. I'm not an activist.
Mhm.
I'm in Mexico, for Christ's sake. Nobody's going out on the streets protesting. And even would I do that? I don't know. But I can do something. You see, the force that I feel like, and you've talked about it with me and we've experienced, is like the consciousness itself, the totality of consciousness, which we are only a tiny fractal of, but its own in its own self, right? Of being able to watch something going on and not fall to despair, and to be able to realize that right here next to us in this material world, there is so much going on. And that's where, for me, the movement is. That's where my energy body, that's the contacts I'm having, that's the upliftment I'm feeling, and also still tearing down my own structures.
Oh, yes, I think that's an ongoing thing, um, for the entire lifetime we spend here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, living in the third world part of Europe, there's, I bet half the people don't even know what the fuck is going on with Palestine and Israel here. They are busy watching shows and making money, and that's all their life centers
Mhm.
around. So I couldn't join any protest either. Not that I would, because I know very well what protesting is about.
Mhm. Yeah, and
But
yet,
I think what we can do, all of us, is visualize peace and feeding exactly that. I don't want to say emotion, but something like it into the morphic field,
mhm,
because that will then change.
it does.
And yeah, and they may find that one day they wake up and they don't have anyone who will fight for them because everyone's had enough.
Mhm. Well, and yeah, or they're going to destroy enough of humanity in their attempts right now that the ones that will be survive. And I don't see particularly, and I don't promote like the fear factor that they throw out there with like nuclear bombs and World War III. Like that's something we can do. Like I take that lie apart constantly within my own self, and I even speak it out. And I'm like, speak it out. If you're coming around going, oh my God, it's like it's going to be a nuclear holocaust, and or the sun's going to micronova, and we're all going to go poof. And if that happens,
Oh
fine.
yeah, and the comet is gonna,
Yeah.
smash Earth and all that.
But all those things, like those are all like very heavily put into, let's call it the virtual world, because this is a virtual world. What I'm talking through right now is virtual, right?
Mm.
And so and with all the AI and with all the deep fakes, they have an ability to create so much right now that is fake. So how do we separate the fake from the real? And it's like you were saying, it's like the consciousness that we carry. Like I'm not going to go into some sort of arrogant, I'm all powerful stance, but from a deep-seated place of spiritual peace, I can
Mhm.
go, and I say it all the time. I've been saying it. There's not going to be any nuclear holocaust, you know. Pay attention to the sun. The sun is a living being. It's not just some sort of fusion ball in the sky. So you have communication with the sun. And the
Yeah,
sun, when I'm with it, it's like, it's almost like how it comes through me. It's like, no, no. I don't feel like it's going to actually micronova, so if it happens,
no.
it happens. But but see, that's where if you get into the positive aspect of self, with the higher self, what stops us from being and not buying everything on the screen or the voices of others or the massive gaslighting going on? There's so much fakery out there right now. It's going to become harder and
Yeah,
harder to discern unless you've already done your work.
yeah. I suppose it would take a lot more to fool us than the next door neighbor.
Well, they're already fooled. They're already in the full on the, as Matt McKinley.
Yeah.
They're on the ship
So
of
they,
fault.
they will buy the next offer,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether it's disaster or the latest gadget, it doesn't matter. It's, they're already queuing up.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's another thing,
You go ahead.
this extreme commercialism.
That's with all of it. And that's how
And
they captured everybody. That's how they captured everybody.
yeah, I
Including art.
know,
I mean,
but it's sort of getting more extreme by the day almost.
I think there's a tinge of desperation under the current of that
Oh
right now,
yeah, yeah,
because that's what they herded humanity into, was material wealth, material success. And it doesn't matter your social economical level if you're not if you're third world or whatever, if you could get that television, that meant you were doing well, right? And so
Yeah.
they've herded everybody into that. Right now, those that were watching, they're going to take down that world. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but in a way, they're going to take themselves down at the same time.
Well, yes.
So, I mean, when I was young, it was like, oh man, let me get the newest thing. And I wanted the prettiest clothes and, things like that. Where at this moment, like even getting dressed in the morning, I'm like, fuck it, I don't even want to go. That's not quite true, but I still have a little vanity there. but um, when you stand back and you see it, and I think, this is something for people to contemplate, if I may say, is like, why are you perturbed by those on the ship of fools? You see, they're the mass consciousness, unwoken. I actually can have compassion for them. All right. I can. So we seem to see these people, and there's masses and masses and masses of them, right? That somehow they're driving consciousness. Well, they're not. They don't have
Well,
enough inner
they,
power to be doing that.
they
So,
don't have consciousness.
right.
They have just enough to function like a human being in everyday life, if they are
Mhm.
lucky. But other than that,
But see,
it's nothing there.
if we elevate, we can have love and compassion for them too, and not become disturbed, because frankly, they're there to disturb us, to convince us that there's no hope, to convince us that, because of this. And they're everywhere. There's no country that they're not.
Yeah.
Mexico's very much caught in that. I mean, frick, we have the empire to our north, right? So it's been infiltrated. And yeah, anyways, and that's what I attempt to do. Some people can be extremely irritating. I don't deny that. but
Yes.
but I rarely have to interact. And I look at all the Mexicans, I mean, frankly, they're just doing what they think they should be doing because of they eat crap, they eat poison, they get vaccines, they go to the doctor, they do all these things, right? Because they don't know any better. And until consciousness moves things to a more holistic paradigm, they don't even know that there's anything else there to choose from. And that's what I see happening in the undercurrent. It's like we're flipping the world back upright.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're reaching the pinnacle of inversion right now, and it has to flip back upright. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
cyclical. So to be prepared within yourself, with your own knowledge, with your studies or whatever, to be there to move that current forward, and it's comes through individuals. It doesn't come through group movements. So I see lots of people doing very, very exciting and good work, but that's, I guess I've come to, it's like, that's not my way. My way is very individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it's like, okay, there's some loneliness involved in it. Um, but that's okay too. So,
Yes.
so
Most of the
yeah.
time.
And I would like to invite, because I know I've got to run off and tend my shop in a few minutes, but I'd like to invite the listening audience, whoever they may be, if there are any left. But I'd like to invite, you know, start speaking truth. Speak, but when I say speak truth to power, it doesn't mean go shout down your senator or your, local police chief or any, it means have
Hey.
have enough within that when you see those that are controlled by the power matrix or the synagogue of Satan or however you want to look at it, I don't care how people see it. I don't care what name they put on it. Find the courage to find the opportunity to speak truth.
Yes. I mean, wake up every morning and make a decision for the day that today you will only say what is true.
Mm-hmm. and be prepared to learn and open up,
And
and.
it can be a fun exercise.
Mhm. It is an exercise because we don't become good at anything unless we exercise it,
Truth.
so because of my situation with having a little coffee shop and having people come around, I've had to learn how to do this, and yet I'm not perfect at it. It'll never be perfect in anything. And yet it's very individual. It's like that aspect of looking at who we're speaking of. Where can I plant this seed? And it's such deep listening, Claudia, for me, and allowing people over time, they trust, they come around, they feel welcomed, they don't feel criticized, they feel like they're in a safe place. And not all of them are traumatized. I have lots of pretty powerful friends too, but it takes time for them to get to that place. And then when they start opening up, you'll find underneath anybody that you think is an asshole or trauma.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the first step in accessing something deeper in yourself, is not being victim and not covering up that trauma.
Mm.
And unfortunately, again, in this economic currency controlled, titled registry, what do you call it, world, where we have doctors and experts and psychologists and psychiatrists, and you know that seems to be the route they're trying to get everybody to go into to get help when they're in a moment of crisis. Well, we can all be each other's physician. We can all be there for each other.
Yes, I would go one step further and say don't go to those so-called experts
I would
because
too.
they are part of the system we don't want.
Yeah. Well, they are. I mean, they're
I mean,
trained.
which doctor has ever cured someone truly?
Yeah. Only maybe some of the old time doctors or the ones that didn't buy the whole system. But in the general sense of it, I mean, why am I healthy? I don't go to doctors, right?
Yeah, same.
Uh, and my issue with that too, because I do work in the health field a little bit, is that, and people kind of with me when I say, they'll come in with a diagnosis. I have Hashimoto's. I got diagnosed with Epstein-Barr. I got diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. On and on and on, right?
Congratulations, you've been programmed.
Exactly. And the more you repeat that, the more you make it real. So my
Heck
first
yeah.
thing usually is like, don't believe your diagnosis. Because I've looked into all this stuff. It's all fake anyways, right?
Mhm.
It's just the way the doctors are trained, and they're worse than ever. And so stop with the diagnosis.
It's
Let's just,
commerce. It's commerce. They have to brand it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, you've got this virus, you've got that bacteria, you've got not to say that when the human body gets way out of a balance, we do get invaded by bacteria, because they do come in to try to help a process. You can also ingest things that are very toxic to your system. I mean, there's a lot of things, but it's the branding, it's the labeling, and then some people will get 4 or 5 diagnoses: thyroid disorder, sleep, I mean, it's hard because, again, once you're given a diagnosis and you marry yourself to it, you don't want anybody to take that away from you. It's the excuse given to you for your own lack of courage and power to realize you're responsible for
Mhm.
your health.
Yeah.
So I just see, like what I said earlier, like, why is a Jewish person raised in a Jewish family so identify with being Jewish, even though they've never even looked at what that means? It's just the culture that they grew up in.
It's senseless
It's the same
repetition.
thing. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to accept my own inner being. Therefore, having a diagnosis becomes a great way to avoid life.
It all comes down to taking responsibility for self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line of pretty much everything that is wrong in the world or with an individual, because as above, so below, as in the micro, so in the macro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it all comes down to fucking take responsibility for every single fucking step you're taking,
Every
because
thought.
otherwise it's not going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of a bottom line message. And, uh, on the aspect of that, the more responsibility, the more that and I see millions of woken beings, right? Not like woke, but like awake, aware, coming to themselves, right? Through this journey, you can call it the hero's journey, you can call it, the alchemical journey of transmutation of self from the ego self into the spiritual self. And so, as I see this process happening, I'm also aware that it is influencing the general dynamic within the human psyche.
Well, it
And
has to.
hmm so I'd like to leave it on that positive note, Claudia. I don't know how we managed to pull this off, but we did, and we can do this again.
Mhm.
See, I'm
In the
being
next
responsible,
episode.
darling. I have to go open a shop. And I'm responsible to myself, but I have things in my care too. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just if we see power, it's kind of an inversion, but if we see power as something outside ourselves coercing us into certain things that we're doing, right? Or certain things that all of us have to comply to still, okay? We haven't bridged that gap yet of how do we get out of compliance with power. And I'm talking about negative power, negative control over coercion. Um, we're working on it. We're building that bridge to the next way of manifestation so we can literally get out of the control structure. But meanwhile, speak truth. It's not that hard.
No, in fact, once you've done it a few times, it becomes very natural, because
Mhm.
that is, in fact, our natural state.
Yeah. And if I say lose somebody in my life, a friend or whatever, because they don't like what I say, and I'm like I said, I'm not perfect in it. I don't choose to offend people, but sometimes I'm very strong in my word. Then that's okay too,
Yeah.
because that exit of that human that they're going on their, I have to honor them and going on their own path because they've got to find it in their own way. Then
Mhm.
it opens a bigger space for others to come in. So, you don't really lose. This idea of loss is fictitious, anyways. We don't really lose anything.
Yeah.
Anyways, darling, I'm going to turn off the recording and put my glasses back on, see what time it is. It's not too bad. Okay, that was cool. I'm glad we did that.